Focus, Phoebe. You can do this. We're not gonna rant about the fascinating perspective changes when you scale objects settle in, class. This time our vote says giants. At least some of them. There's been well over 100 giants and kin just in the past few editions of D&D and Pathfinder. Of course, I provided conversions for whatever we're talking about, so if you play one system but love a monster from the other, I've gotcha. We're gonna be focusing on true giants first, because even with that limitation, D&D has 20 and Pathfinder 30. This was actually voted on, and I'm happy to oblige. Thanks to a lot of shows and books growing up, I've been fascinated with how context changes due to size since I was like 3. Giants and their homes are something I've used a lot over the years. I love cobbling makeshift things together, so logistics and tools of borrowers or sentient mice or Ariete or whatever is one of my favorite aesthetics. But we'll never get to use a giant spork as an ironic spear if we stay in the intro, so you ready? Let's go. Let's start with what a giant is, because they're not just a giant person. In fact, there are two categories, true giants and giant kin. True giants are the direct descendants of gods, but there is a key difference. In D&D, there were two specific gods, Anam and Othea. Those who can trace their blood to both are true giants, and each species was given both an area to rule and a place in the hierarchy. Anam ranked his kids by how much he liked them and made their kids rank each other. Even said that the greatest of one tier is worse than the lowest rank of the one above them no matter what, in a system called the Ordering. No wonder Othea left him. Speaking of which, that's what giant kin are, half-siblings. They are on the outskirts of society with ogres at the lowest, because betraying Anam is the religion's #1 sin. Note that he was known for his lustful nature with plenty of paramours, concubines, and wives, but it's fine when it's him. Anyway, the point is that they're all direct but distant descendants of great gods. They're also getting weaker over the eons. We've got stats for some of the godly grandkids now, and they are incredible. In Pathfinder, however, it's much more straightforward. At least we haven't had an update on their origin in 2e, so I'm assuming it's the same as first edition. The gods made titans, and when they walked out from the fires of creation, creatures called Gygas rose in their smoldering footsteps. The Gygas had some fun with mortals and made the first giants, who adapted to their environment as they traveled and became what we know now. Since they're descended from where pure creation met all the different planes, they're basically part of the land, which is easy enough if you're a wood giant, but shadow giants are stuck craving a physical shadow. This also kind of implies that if they're stuck in a new land long enough, you might get a new giant. As for giant kin, they aren't related. They've got their own quirks, but these ones kinda are just a giant person. It's like a fish or a crab. They're more of a colloquial you know one when you see one category. Anyway, let's finally talk about the species. I can't separate these by sentience like I could the plants, and definitely not by color like the dragons, so instead let's go by habitat. Today we'll start in the hills and work upward, because hill giants are the standard grunts of true giants. They are some of the weakest and dumbest, gluttonous bullies that don't mind being on the bottom. For D&D, they don't even really realize there is a chain of power. They just know that other giants are bigger and the biggest makes the rules. They're 16 feet tall in D&D, but only 9 or 10 in Pathfinder. No special abilities either, just throwing rocks and obsessing over food. The D&D version even has games like Who Can Talk with the Most Gnomes in their mouth, and a twisted game of Chubby Bunny. They can also eat near anything without getting sick, to the point that if they do get sick, they're treated as divine messengers, which is a really bad thing. They're chained up and left to near starve until they go insane. You need to understand that the D&D version is barely sapient. These things have 5 intelligence and are some of the dumbest things still able to speak. They think 3 adults in a trench coat is actually another giant. They'll see an elf living in a tree and get confused why they can't, like a dog still thinking it's the size of a puppy. The Pathfinder versions are a bit smarter, on par with ogres or basic elementals, but they're still dumb, quick-tempered cowards who play dirty. At least when they have kids, they have a ritual to see if the tribe is ready to support a child, though if they can't, they use it as hunting bait. Yeah, they're not really known to be good, though it's more selfishness and lack of empathy than cruelty. They're like young children, mood swings and all, just not really understanding that others are people too. In Pathfinder, many turn out to be perfectly decent and just keep massive herds. It does happen in D&D too, though it's rare and usually when they're short and outcast. Usually when you encounter these, it's a band of raiders who are hungry and wanting to eat everything in sight. Food's their only real motivation, they're pretty straightforward. They stand on top of hills to throw rocks or run down them to trample people. D&D ones are challenge 5 and Pathfinder's level 7, so when you're at low levels, even 1 can be a decent fight. Giants also love having pets, though in this case we're talking bears and such. And while a couple giants with a hippogriff hunting bird is nice, we can get stronger. Some of these turn out to be as smart as your average human, and they tend to be leaders. Suddenly they're actually using tactics, and most importantly, that leader can get ridiculously strong. And while Barbarian is obvious to become nigh unkillable, I could see Druid or Ranger since hunting is such a huge focus in their culture. In fact, I do see them right here, focused on hunting and turning into giant animals. It also has a reaction to run after playing creatures, which I'm sure will terrify your wounded fighter. I find using abilities to evoke a class is so much better than just taking levels. D&D seems to agree, evoking a caster with the Avalancher. They're smart enough to learn and master rune magic, keeping with their element of dirt and stone. They use them to make magic ropes between thrown rocks to tie people up and clap like thunder when they impact. They can also summon avalanches and walls of stone and send people who hit them flying. But if you're a player, just a little hint, they need their special rock. Smash it and they lose half their power. Speaking of powerful hill giants, however, we can do better. Level 12 is strong, but what if I told you that a hill giant offshoot from the first 3 editions of D&D is one of the strongest of all? Enter the mountain giant, who was originally a hill giant variant, but it turns out the Forgotten Realms ones were just short. These are what happens if a hill giant grows to like 40 feet tall. Thankfully, they are surprisingly chill. They live in loose communities, use stolen furniture and huts as fidget toys, and get by on potatoes and goats and such. They're also not particularly evil. They're perfectly happy making peace treaties. They can be a bit erratic or cruel, but they're mainly just suspicious loners who'd rather not interact with people. Now, despite that, they have the ability to summon giants, ogres, trolls, even a few hill giants. But they suck at social interaction, so their commands are more like loose suggestions. And that's 3's good version where they just appear. Originally, they took hours to walk over and might not even show up. That's not a magical summon, that's a group chat message saying who wants to hang tonight. What they have over their kin, other than size, is the ability to grab and launch nearly anyone, or just use their 20-foot vertical leap to crush anyone underneath them. That probably won't happen though, since they are a whopping CR26. That kinda works in Pathfinder since their play is more balanced at high levels, but who's needing that in 5e? So I'm still gonna convert it, but I'm also throwing in one at a lower level. Still strong, but at a level you might actually use. Also lower than the version in Pathfinder. The Pathfinder mountain giants are 45-foot tall carnivorous sadists who dine on the flesh of humanoids, especially other giants who use them as scary stories to keep kids in line. Except these are quite real, and their special abilities are impaling people and devouring anyone under 16 feet tall whole. So the size of a giant's kid, they really are things to hide under your covers from. They can also turn invisible, create darkness, teleport, and apparently wear a leather mask and outfit. They dress like a horror monster because they love the taste of fear and pain just as much as the meat. That's probably why they hunt humanoids. Intelligent creatures probably have more complex fears. Either way, if you have a party ready for a level 18 creature, you can have them see one climb out of a gorge and up a mountain after them. Have it stalk them, draw close, and start fighting, then teleport away to begin the hunt anew. Use their at-will invisibility to have them jumping at shadows. If it sees them tracking it, have it wait invisible at the end of the trail and snatch up the ranger. Thankfully, not every powerful giant is this terrifying. One of the more powerful in either system would be the storm giant. 23 feet tall, give or take a few. These wise and reclusive creatures can shoot lightning, control the weather, levitate, and are actually amphibious. They're both level 13 in their respective challenge systems, and D&D's is rocking that ancient Greek scale mail, while the Pathfinder version is going full Zeus. The lightning beard's a nice touch, and Pathfinder people might be confused as to what they're doing here, since theirs live on tropical islands and coastlines. They're good people, but being the children of the concept of a storm, be careful. Much like a storm, they're calm if you catch them in the eye, but they rapidly change their mood. They grow huge gardens tended by hired humans and elves, but they aren't often home thanks to innate wanderlust. I mean, they're proud protectors of the whole region. They gotta go fight a kraken with their lightning sword, and that's your in if you're looking for a hook. The giant needs little evils defeated while she's off fighting dragons. Or maybe she's gunning for you because whatever you're doing could hurt the island long term. But the connection here is that the D&D version resides on mountaintops or the depths of the ocean. That and because storm giants will keep popping up, so I wanted to bring them up in the first video. D&D storm giants are the top of the pecking order now that the titans are gone, but spend most of their time secluded. They can read omens and clouds and birds and such, and prefer to spend their time in contemplation. D&D also has a few variants. The Quintessent extends their hundreds of years of life by turning into the embodiment of a storm, an eternal blizzard, the foam of a waterfall. They are nature incarnate. They also have a lightning sword, wind javelins that can't miss, and they're legendary, so they get actions on your turn to throw you with wind, or shoot lightning, or turn into a storm to dodge. They can also summon thunder, wind, and fog at the start of every round, so watch out, especially because they aren't all there outside brief moments. They're just desperately clinging to life. At least it's less destructive than Lichdom. The pinnacle, however, is the Tempest Caller. These have mastered rune magic. They can fly, summon weapons made of lightning, use the runes to cause freezing storms, and can see any location and through deception with their crystal ball eyes. Their repertoire of natural magic also gains spells like Time Stop, because now they're challenge 20, which is amazing, but these are likely to either be a quest giver, quest destination, or final boss. For the vast majority of parties, there's only so much you can do with someone that strong, but that is way off the deep end, so let's scale back for just a moment. Did you know they like keeping pets? They'll keep sea lions, sharks, griffins, even a rock. Not as in the stone, I mean colossal birds with an 80-foot wingspan to hunt elephants and whales. In D&D, the rock was apparently made by Anam, god of giants, to help them fight dragons in the air. Now they often hunt giants. The storm and cloud giants value their eggs. In D&D, it's so they can raise them as pets, and Pathfinder's cloud giants will do that, but most just think they're tasty. A giant person needs giant eggs for breakfast. It gives you plenty of adventure though. They're a nice mid-range challenge, and if you can't fight it, then you've got a stealth mission. You're hunting for eggs, or even just rare colored feathers, which can sell very well. But be careful and quick before Mama Bird gets back. And maybe it's not for a giant. You've just got a very ambitious ranger running a chick. I've seen it happen. Catfolk with a crossbow saved the party when they fought a clockwork dragon in the sky. I'll have to share the story sometime, but that's not their only type of giant companion. You ever hear of a Behir? My analytics say probably, but they're basically lightning-powered crocodile centipede things. They are not related to dragons, they hate dragons, do not associate them with dragons or you will die. Though you'll probably die anyway, they are very hungry and violent. In D&D, they are made by storm giants to hunt down dragons, and in Pathfinder, don't tell them, but they probably are related to dragons. They can climb walls, breathe lightning, constrict and swallow things like a snake, and in Pathfinder, they can infuse their claws with lightning to sprint through the air while clawing at everyone. They also get 60 feet of lightning like you'd expect from something 40 feet long, not a 20-foot breath like in D&D. They're even challenge 11 there instead of Pathfinder's 8. These are some of my favorites to use. Insane mobility to attack from all sides, but if you want to hear more, I mean, people do still watch my 3-minute Behir video for some reason. If I'm competent, there's a card up there. But before you do, can I just talk about this art? For some some reason, the D&D art just makes me think of opera. I've had them barreling down walls while belting low notes and casting lightning. Really throws them off their game. And secondly, I'm sorry, but look at the Pathfinder art. The artist for both is great, but I love Pathfinder's direction. There's excitement, danger, a lack of signature like is standard for systems and art books nowadays. I know that everyone's names are in a pile at the start, and sometimes they do get to keep the signature, but Pathfinder 1st edition had individual names on the side of every page. Anyway, speaking of people not getting credit, how about some giants who take it all and think they still don't get enough? I did say mountain and sky, so let's finally get off the ground with the— Wait, what about the stone giant? What about the stone giant? You can't do a mountain giant episode without stone giants. Okay, look, there's a lot of giants associated with stone giants, as well as a bunch of other underground giants. We're saving them for an underground episode before the script's word count counts as a novella. Trust me, we are halfway there. Speaking of which, we have the bitter bronze medalist, the silver by default, the cloud giant. At least that's the D&D version. The storm giants might be at the top of the ordering, but they don't care about the petty squabbling of politics, so the cloud giants grab the power and wield it in their absence. As far as they're concerned, it should have been theirs to begin with, since they actually want to use it. They used to float around in cloud castles with overflowing gardens of massive fruit and giant pets, but most of those were destroyed by dragons in the war. The few that remain are held by petty nobility clinging to glory days. They decide who's the best among them by wealth, both in what you wear and what you display at home. They won't even show emotions like a poor person, using their massive masterwork mask collection to show their exact mood. They value smooth talk and cleverness, so instead of just raiding, they get their wealth through high-stakes gambling. They try to pick something neutral, like the outcome of conflicts of smaller people. Interfering isn't allowed, but it's only cheating if you're caught. Otherwise, it's just honoring your ancestor god. Some of them go all in on their god's trickery and deceit. Forget societal politeness, forget decency, and while we're at it, forget the mask collection. These smiling ones only need one. Half wicked sneer because they're better than you, half brownie face because the storm giants are higher ranked anyway. They're rewarded for this by being able to blast people with their mind, change shape and control weather at will, fly and teleport around. However, if these drama queen giants rein it in and just focus on their cleverness, they gain a gambling addiction. I mean, gambling powers that are fueled by addiction. The Destiny Gambler has as much arrogance as they have magical might and gambling addiction. At this point, they've beaten devils, genies, dragons, you name it, using a custom blindfold that lets them see through the scene. They can also fly, enter people's dreams, knock over everyone with a thunderclap, and interrupt spells as a reaction. It's all tied to their special mask, and nothing will make the party want to smash that more than finding out it gives them infinite counter spell. However, they aren't the only take. Pathfinder's Cloud Giant is much more restrained. They also judge each other's wealth to the point that some nobles have to float instead of walk, but their main vice is fine dining, and outside their civil war, they're not into drama. Cloud Giants are split between thinking of themselves as deserving leaders of the world and just wanting to be left alone. Either way, they don't really come into contact much. They even arrange marriages through bird-delivered messages without ever meaning. Birds are a big deal to them, and bird keepers like rangers are highly respected. The Pathfinder Giants have to eat their element, so sometimes Cloud Giants will build mansions on mountaintops, but they often just stay in valleys and rainforests low enough for frequent fog. And what I find fascinating is that these two sides are completely different from what I thought. I figured the isolationists would be more neutral or at least reclusive, but apparently they form raiding parties to take from the unenlightened, worthless vermin, also known as any smaller humanoid. And although I openly take issue with autocrats and nobles basically as a rule, the arrogant ruler ones are actually the good ones, building roads and sharing innovation and trying to make the world better through genuine altruism and diplomacy. They will walk down a staircase of solid fog with a deafening crack of their thunder spear and explain how, since I'm obviously the best and brightest, my duty is to help you smaller folk. I'm a superior with the blood of gods and a much longer lifespan. Of course I'll solve your petty little problems. So who wants to trade a house-sized pumpkin for some foreign spices? Also, has anyone seen my baby? They're 9 feet tall and like to float ominously over wheat fields. They just love the funny faces farmers make when they blot out the sun. I love the dramatic D&D version, and the pettiness gives you so many adventure opportunities. Invading their castle in the sky, breaking their bets, dealing with their freed pets after someone else took over their keep. They're great quest givers and patrons for our group, but I'm sorry, you're number 2 again in my book. Pathfinders gives us star-crossed lovers and benevolent rulers with rival raiders threatening their trade deals, but what pushed me over was the giant floating baby. Pathfinder 1 explains how farmers are never sure what kind of omen an ogre-sized baby drifting over their field is supposed to represent. Is this a blessing of fertility? Are my children gonna darken the land? Is Kate and Kalian just pranking me? Work with me, gods, I'm trying here. It really just means some well-meaning wine-aunt was chatting too long with the grocer and her niece toddled off. Next time she puts him on a leash harness and it looks like she's got a screaming balloon because the baker didn't have enough sweet rolls and you're taking forever, let's go. It's not as prominent with the giants, but I love seeing the different takes now that Pathfinders had time to fully split. Of course, you can comment down below if you think the other ones are better, but for now, let's go even higher, all the way up past the air, out into the atmosphere. If you noticed I've been leading with D&D more than Pathfinder, it's partially because Pathfinder's taken the stage on these last ones. The Moon Giant, level 15, is a 24-foot tall giant with sparkling moon-like skin, by which I mean it looks like it's made of pale stone and covered in impact craters. That also happens to be its special move, where it throws a rock so hard it creates difficult terrain where it lands, still messing with you even on a miss. They're philosophers that stay in deserted places like distant hills and badlands, looking for wisdom in the movement of the stars. They have plenty of magic, but it's mostly divination or stuff to commune with nature. Also a little control over water because the moon makes the tide, and they even have an aura based on its phases. With waning moon, they hit everyone around them with calm emotions, and they force lycanthropes back into normal form. That's usually what it's gonna be on, but not always. They're typically chill and like to chat with a couple peers or maybe a passerby, but under the wrong moon, they get violent. Their waxing aura can act as a full moon to werewolves and sends everybody around them into a rage. In a fight, they're actually pretty straightforward, but there's a reason they can make an impact crater. They hit like a meteor, though they are pretty good quest givers. The party went out into the wilds and got a quest to go adventure in the city. Maybe they need you to hunt down a thief, or they want an interesting tome, or for you to grab its author so it can talk shop with them. Maybe one hires you to figure out who destroyed a village they were guarding, but it turns out it was them and they just have no memory because they were raging. Maybe there's horrible rumors that one's making an army of werewolves, but they're actually acting as a refuge since they can stop the curse. Or maybe it is true and they're using that incentive to keep them loyal. In direct contrast here is the slightly stronger Sun Giant. These are soldiers in the endless quest to wipe out dark and shadow, fighting for the good of everyone in need, or at least they were. Now most of them are selfish tyrants demanding sacrifices and blood for protection under their shining regime. Their eternal beauty was supposed to be a blessing for their goodness, but it stuck with them even through the fall. Even worse, they also kept their strength. They can fire endless entangling darts, and anyone entering their aura is dazzled by the light. And that's just the ambient light. They can also focus it to permanently blind. They might not be as talented with magic as their counterparts, but theirs is actually offensive with flame and exhaustion. Now of course you know where my allegiance lies. Let's join the Sun Giant resistance and topple a tyrant. Some of them are still good in fighting the power. Maybe your party fought a dragon or cloud giant in the past and now they're seeking your aid as giant slayers. Or maybe they're using your party as terriers, having them chase evil in places too small for them to follow. And even if you can't win, if you just lure it out, she can squash it for you. That would be an especially good origin for a party of new players. At first the party always has backup to squash the encounters they lure out, but by the end she's just blocking the door so they can do the real fighting. But sun and moon, zeal and calm, explosive energy and quiet contemplation, they don't have to be apart. And no, I don't just mean a story of helping lovers escape, though I'm always a sucker for that. For the strongest giant not directly formed by gods, welcome the Eclipse Giant. Daylight and darkness, heal and harm, and a pair of bold spells to block out light and chill the area. However, as 40-foot tall giants, they are at a size where they will accidentally step on your house. They're just completely oblivious, but they wouldn't really care even if they did notice. The only thing they care about is the sky. They are always watching, calculating how long they have until the next eclipse. Under the eclipse, they truly awaken, their inner self revealed alongside their true power. They also get a +4 to nearly every roll just for morale, and my version throws in Starfinder's protection against damage too. While under the eclipse, they might discover the cure to turbo cancer, or write the greatest banjo solo of their era, or enter a supernatural rage and rout an entire army. Their true self is a pinnacle of nature, but wouldn't that mean they're only really themselves in those moments? Wouldn't they feel hollow the rest of the year? No wonder they're always trying to figure out where the next one is and making sure to be there. Also remember that all this stuff is essentially your random commoner version. They also have bards and wizards and such that would hit the realm of titans. I assume highly respected ones too, because they don't figure this out with magic. They just use math over and over. With gods and magic always meddling, you really can't rely on the calendar. Though good luck getting it out of them, because if you disturb their thoughts, they will swat you like a fly. If you do have any interaction with them, it needs to focus on the eclipse. Not just for character reasons, but because, come on, don't waste the potential. One runs up to you freaking out because they need materials to build their masterwork. Maybe there's a half-forgotten prophecy about the next eclipse, and nobody knows what or when that is better than the Eclipse Giant. Or maybe one is essentially a fail state. One's coming to smash the city next eclipse, and the king needs you to stop them by any means, because once this barbarian giant enters his rage, the avatars of gods would struggle to face him. But that'll do it for now. Next up, we'll be talking about elementals. You voted on either wood or water, and we'll see how I feel when I look through them all. That is how I do it, by the way. I go through every creature of the given type in all the different editions, and split them up by subcategory and such. And I'm sorry this one didn't really go under level 5, but there's only so much I can do. They're giants, so if they weren't strong, it'd just be weird. Just like I can be weird thanks to my lovely coffee supporters, Barrel Goblin, Modern Masquerade, Level 1 Cleric, Snake Oil, and Dr. Mud. Thanks for sticking with me. Now I better get cracking on the next episode since all these festivities will be eating up my time. Thanks for watching. Class dismissed.
Hey boss, why in such a good mood?
So despite my HUD catching fire thanks to some dumbass with a cigarette, I'm finally back on some of my old medicine. Keeping up disguised self is unsatisfying and annoying. It'll be nice to finally get back on the long-term transformation. Though honestly, I need to get checked for curses. Every time I try this brew, a building important to me catches fire within like a week.
You really should.
I'll get around to it eventually, it's probably just my luck. Anyway, I gotta get brewing.
Oh, can I join?
Sure, the more the merrier. See you around, guys.
See ya.